Good evening, everyone. I am Gayan, the project chairman for Effie 2024. I welcome every one of you on behalf of my team and the Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing. So today is the first session of many titled How to Write a Winning Entry. We understood the importance of giving necessary knowledge because when you apply for Effie award, there are techniques, do's and don'ts, which we definitely need to get educated ourselves. Therefore, we will be having many sessions like this. Today is the first session. And I would like to introduce jury head, Gianni Ross. So he'll be serving as a jury head for this time. He has wealth of knowledge in FE as an applicant and as a jury member. Now he's a jury head. And also, I would like to say thank you, Shahan, in advance because you are serving the community voluntary. So that will be great, addition to Slim team in terms of running this workshop fully. Without taking much time, I'll let Jan to start the session. Over to Jan.
Thanks, Gayan. Thanks everybody for coming in. I know it's a Friday evening, it's raining out there, and I'm sure being in advertising, you guys have got plenty of better things to do than listening to two guys tell you all how to write a winning entry on a Friday night. So we'll keep it short and try to keep it as interactive as possible, right? So I'm keen not to make this a one-way show. So we want to start off with inviting you guys um, to scan the QR code, which is coming up here, and answer the question. So I'll just give you guys a few minutes, a few seconds to just go ahead and scan the QR code. And the question is, what is the most challenging factor you face when writing an entry? So I'll just give you guys a couple of minutes to do that scan, and please send in your answers. And the maestro here, Shehan, will answer it when it comes to the question and answer time. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. So we're getting answers in. Keep typing, guys. So I'm hearing. So one is we're getting data from clients. Being a client myself, when the agency comes and asks me for information, I'm like, oh God, I need to now add another thing to my to-do list. So yeah, that can be a challenge. How to make it a winning one? Yeah, hopefully you will hear about it today. Getting the tonality right and bringing out the story in the most impactful way possible. Yes, that's something also we'll probably talk about today. Writing style, also very important. Keep typing, guys. So the more you keep sending us this information, we can make this far more meaningful, right? Submission process and deadlines, what to include and what not to include to make it a winning one. Do we need to exaggerate or not? Believe me, the jury knows when exaggerating, guys. How to structure it better. Wait another minute for it to come. So yeah, we'll definitely. Okay, great, guys. So thanks for sharing all this information, right? So we'll definitely get to it when we get into the presentation. So I'm going to start off with so me being in marketing and obviously it's been well over 12 years since I was in advertising, right? So I'm going to talk about my observations on writing an award-winning entry, but my pitch is going to be from 30,000 feet in the air, right? So this is from my observations from being a jury member, both at Slim as well as other award shows for the past few years. And these are the kind of thematic issues I've spotted year in, year out. And what will happen is Shehan will then take over the second part of the presentation and go into more the nitty-gritties on how to write an award-winning entry, right? So let me start off with by talking about storytelling, right? So my whole thing is we're going by the 10 commandments. I'm going to keep it very simple, being a good Catholic that I am, right? So storytelling, that came up in the first one of the feedbacks that we gave, that you guys shared, right? So you need to storytell, right? You need to have a strong beginning, which I'll talk about in a bit, a captivating act two, and an epic conclusion. Think about a movie, right? There's a very strong beginning, keeps you hooked during the middle session, and an epic conclusion, right? Remember the three S's when it comes to story, right? Story, success, and sizzle. Right? Those are the three S's you guys need to remember when it comes to storytelling. Now, you guys do storytelling for brands all the time, right? When you go and make a pitch to a client, when you guys write a piece of copy, when you guys do any campaigns, that's all storytelling. But sometimes you guys struggle to replicate that in your entry. So really think about how you can create this entire story with a beginning, an act two, and epic conclusions. That's the most important thing about writing an entry. Don't make it so formal. It has to be casual. It has to be interesting. You can throw in a joke or two. You can ask them a question. You can keep the language very, very informal. It doesn't have to be how you write a business proposal to get money from a bank for starting up your own business. Keep it very casual, guys. Sometimes we get overly formal. I think that's the word. So keep it very casual, keep it very light, because you will then hook the judges instantaneously, right? So that's the first rule. So everybody, I'm sure, has seen Deadpool and Wolverine, right? So my second commandment is thou shalt remember the 5-second rule for both the entry and the video. Start off with a bang that they will never forget, right? You need to start very strong. That's in both the video as well as the entry, right? That first 5 seconds that these guys read the case needs to be something that really grabs them by the balls, pretty much. So really focus on getting that part right. All too often we start off in a very, very safe manner, right? Both in terms of the entry as well as in terms of the video, right? Get to the, maybe for the video can be like how the most movies do their trailers, right? They show the end, they show the climax in probably the first shot, and then they go into the start of the trailer. Just think of new ways of doing it, right? It doesn't have to follow the same old format. Just remember that 5-second rule. Hook them in the first 5 seconds. Start off with a bang that they will never forget. The third commandment is thou shalt not write generic context, right? The jury knows how tough life is in Sri Lanka. I can tell you, since we've been judging, all entries start off the same. Last year, everyone was talking about Aragalia, which is true. It was a big part of the context. Year before that, they were talking about economic crisis. Year before that, they were talking about Easter Sunday, right? So we all know that the generic context in Sri Lanka is not easy, right? But what we need you to do is define the context within your category, right? There are some brands that were doing well during the economic crisis. Some brands that were not doing so well. Some brands that were just completely static. So be very, very specific and define the context in relation to your brand or category, right? So that's what I want you guys to remember, because all too often we write something that we already know. And believe me, guys, being a jury member, all of this starts sounding very familiar. When we sit and go through case after case after case, it all starts in the same way, right? So that's how you define context. Define context very clearly from the point of view of your category, your brand, as well as what your target audience is going through, right? It's all very different when you look at it from that perspective. We all know during the economic crisis, there were some people who were thriving, right? While there were certain people who were miserable. Many people took advantage of the high interest rates. For them, they were not impacted by the economic crisis, right? If they had parked, they invested in dollars and so on, they were pretty well off. And so that's what you need to remember, right? So just keep that in mind. The fourth commandment is spend sufficient time analyzing which categories to enter so that you enter has the best chance of winning. Guys, I can't emphasize this enough, right? May seem very simple advice, but very often we in round 1 and even in round 2 have to move things around because you guys have not read the criteria properly and have entered it in a category that you're not supposed to enter into, right? So spend a lot of time reading, rereading, understand where you have the best chance of winning, right? Go back, perhaps look and see what cases have won in the past, so that you can give it your best shot. Really, really important. I know it seems like simple advice, but believe me, this happens so many times, and it's a shame sometimes because some very powerful entries just don't fit the category properly. So spend time figuring that part out. On data, right? Now, this is a major bug, major annoyance that I have, right? Very too, I mean, research agencies present data in a very dated manner, right? Uh, Very boring graphs and charts, which are look unnecessarily complicated, doesn't tell the story. You guys don't need to take screen grabs and dump it and say and quote the source of data. You guys need to take that data, create your own spin on it, right? Create your own charts, create your own graphs, create your storytell with that data, and spend time reinforcing the source, right? Just don't take a data presentation that the research agency has done and just land it onto the entry. That's a very boring way of presenting data. You guys are far better than that, right? Find ways to present data in an interesting manner, in a clear and concise manner that the jury gets immediately. This is a major problem that I see time in and time out. Just doing screen grabs, right? And that looks, sometimes you can't even read the what's on the graph because it's so small and it's been taken, it's pixelating, it's a JPEG, so many issues. Spend time recreating it yourself, and then basically include that in the entry, right? Sixth commandment is use the bold, which is a very simple one, right? Just use the bold function when you want something to stand out, be it a number you want to stand out, be it your insight, or be it your co-creative idea, and use it sparingly. Don't bold everything, right? Because believe me, that also can get very annoying as a jury member. Bold what you really want to stand out, right? And that's something which you can do, which you're allowed to do in the entry. You can't be too creative, but use this in a way that makes your case compelling. I think this came up earlier, right? The seventh commandment was get your client involved all along this journey, right? So now you ask me how to get data from the client. So hopefully you have a good relationship with the client, and from a client's point of view, believe me, if you guys win Effies, it's good for the client also, right? The client will want to put it on his LinkedIn profile. It gives him recognition in his office. Might help him get a promotion or a bonus. All those things actually help his KPIs also, right? So it's very important that you engage the client very early on in the piece, right? And show that you're really keen on driving this award, not just for yourself, but also for their business, right? Because it's more PR for them. It's more credibility for him to show that his money has been well invested because it's an Effie award, it's not a creative award, right? So get them involved in the journey early, and believe me, clients understand data and business impact much better than you guys do, right? So that is an area which they can quantify and write a whole lot better. If there's anything that they can write better, it's not the insight, it's not the idea, it's not the context. It is the business outcome, right? Because they are able to tell you by doing this how it helped drive the business. Even if it's a brand, even if it's moving brand equity scores, or if it's moving business results, the end result is how it helped their business, and that's something only they can help articulate, right? So get them involved really early on in the piece. The best way that I found is not getting them to write stuff, but to send them the entry early and drop some bullet points, right? Even before the data comes in, right? Tell them just, I want a couple of bullet points on the business outcome. Even if you don't have the data, or if I don't have all the information, just some bullet points which you see it off the top of your head, right? Won't take 5 minutes to do it. Just meet him or her for a coffee after work and get it done, right? Don't try to go during office hours and get it done. They're too busy, but just do it on an informal basis. The other thing, the eighth commandment is recycling and reusing videos. Guys, if you all are entering videos in multiple categories, please at least change the first 10-15 seconds, right? Because what happens is the jury looks at the video and says, oh, same video, and doesn't go through it sometimes, right? If they've seen the same video 2 or 3 times, right? If you're entering across multiple categories, you have to spend time changing the entire video around, right? Each category has a different set of criteria for a reason. So how can you take the same video and use it across all categories? You can't, right? So that's, and also very important, make the first, if you're not going to change it around too much, at least change the first few seconds, so that when the jury looks at it, they will say, okay, it's a different video, and then that will hook them, get their attention, so that they'll at least go through the entire 2-3 minutes video, right? And on that topic, someone asked, how long should a video be? It's 3 minutes maximum, guys. It doesn't mean it has to be 3 minutes. It can be 1 minute. If you can get your message across in 30 seconds, do it, right? Do something impactful. Challenge yourself, right, to get that message across in the shortest possible time. Think about Instagram, and think about Instagram Reels and all those things where you have to and shorts that you have to get a message across in the shortest time, right? The longer the message is, the more draggy this sort of video becomes. You sort of lose the jury's attention. So make it a challenge that if you feel you can get a message across in a minute or two, please go ahead and do that. Right? You don't have to use the entire 3 minutes. We are not going to penalize you for a short video, right? Ninth commandment, very simple. Proofread, ensure the entry is error-free. It's 2024, for goodness sake, right? It's still amazing how some people have spellings, grammar, English looks bad. Do whatever it takes. It means running through ChatGPT, spell check, getting someone else to check, get your mother to check, doesn't matter. Just get it checked, right? So that it doesn't annoy jury, because sometimes it's surprising. It's simple, but many people still make this mistake. And the final piece of advice, right? Obviously, party responsibly, and don't take things so personally if you don't win, guys. There's always next time, right? So last year, I felt Nushad was the head of the jury, and I was in one of the panels, second panel, and I felt a lot of awards were given out, and I didn't hear too many complaints. But there'll always be people agencies who are disappointed that they don't win, right? But you have to understand there is a certain allocation that Effie has to go through. Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose, right? But what's important is you keep entering and don't not take it too personally. So that's it from me. I'll answer any questions at the end, but at the moment I'm going to give it over to Shehan, who will take it from there.
Thank you. Thanks, Jan. I think a lot of what you said actually gave me some pointers to improve my entries. So thank you for that. Shall we just go back to our poll and see what the questions are? All right. Okay, so we'll answer this, I think, towards the end of the session. We can go back into this and start the Q&A. I just like to start off by saying that so we've been submitting entries for the last 11 years, and it's been a journey, right? Entry writing isn't something you're born with. You have to properly craft. You need to learn how to write entries, and one of the best ways to learn is by looking at really good entries. I found that when you just go onto Google and type APAC Effie entries, you end up getting heaps and heaps of previous entries that have won gold, silver, bronze, and you really see a huge distinction between the way they write their entries and the way, you know, we tend to think what is needed to be included in that entry. So I'd like to take you through some of the thinking that's there between what we as submitters think is a writing mindset and actually what a jury has in mind when they actually read the entry. So I want to try and bring that distinction through the next couple of slides. I'd like to just share this quote before we get into that section by saying that actually winning an award is determined during the campaign, and what medal you win is actually determined during the submission. So, you know, this really is a important point when it comes to submitting entries itself. When you guys are thinking of, okay, what to submit, you should be looking at the work that you have done. Before you even start looking at the results, you should look at the work that you've done and see, is this worthy of an entry? Is this work pushing the boundaries of what the category has done in the past? Or is it just, you know, staying true to what everybody else is saying within the category? It's the campaign that you do, you execute, you craft, that actually determines whether you're going to win an award or not. And how you write the submission determines the medal you end up getting. So in today's day and age, whatever we submit, we see huge conversion because we use this as a mindset. When we work on a campaign, we know, okay, this campaign can immediately be submitted, and we know the categories we are going to submit for while we are doing the campaign. And that shows how important it is for you to understand the entry kit, understand definitions, know where you want to play when you're doing a campaign even. So, you know, I'm talking about going all the way back when you're starting the campaign. Even if you can even start writing the case film, putting down what your insight is, your idea, sorry, the challenge, your insight, your idea, how you bring it to life. If you can start with that 20-word segment when you're doing the campaign itself, you will be able to not only craft a better submission when a year later you're submitting, but I have found out that you are able to even craft a better campaign you're doing. Because when you look at the Effie entry, there are certain areas when you are filling it also, you realize, wow, you know, by thinking like this, there are so many other areas I could have explored, but the campaign by then is done and dusted. So I'd like to urge you to, you know, when you're looking at future campaigns you're doing, also come with that mindset. Study the entry kit, be very thorough with it beforehand. When you look at a campaign, when you're doing a campaign, keep that in mind and see, is this something that can actually be submitted? What categories can we submit it for? And then sort of work towards that. So it's that process which I would sort of urge you to try and get into that kind of mindset when it comes to entry writing. So moving into the topic of today, writing entries for judges. So as I said, there are two mindsets, right? When we tend to write entries, we always have this mindset of focusing on certain things that we feel are very, very important from a judge's point of view. But in reality, when you are on the judging side and you're judging it, you really see something completely different and you value something else. And this is where, having been both on the side of writing entries and judging, this presentation was done to try and make that clear distinction to help you craft better entries, right? So ideally, as entrants, we should be having a judging mindset, not a writing entry mindset. So, but we tend to always focus on what's there on the left when we should be actually focusing on what's there on the right side of this. So let's just start off by the first point, right? When we write entries, we always think that our jury members are setting time aside. They are going to be setting time aside, going through everything we've written. They will, if they don't understand something, we need to elaborate it. So if we bring in something technical, you know, you want to try and define that, explain it, do all that. They really want to study this like an autobiography. When in reality, it's a huge race against time. Jury members, you know, on average, spend somewhere between 5 and maybe 7 to 8 minutes judging an entry. This is true from Sri Lanka to Middle East to APAC or global even, right? These are sort of predefined time limits where juries decide saying we are not going to spend more than this. 7 minutes at max reading an entry, 3 minutes looking at the case video and move on to the next one. So in that mindset, when you have 14 pages, how are you able to read through in 7 minutes? Vis-a-vis having 7 pages, right? So the fact that you actually use less words, have less paragraphs, have more bullet points, actually works in your favor when judges have gone through a couple of 14-page entries and suddenly get a 7-pager. That itself is refreshing. It's human nature for us to open the PDF and look at how many pages we need to go through before we even start judging, right? So try and keep that, you know, just keep that in mind, that at the end of the day, we want to put more into it and think more is more, we are going to get more, but you know, it's a hugely overstated point that more is more. Reality, less is far, far more, especially when it comes to entry writing. As Jian said, the 5-second rule is very, very key, right? In CAN, the judges have constantly said that within the first 20 seconds, if you don't get the idea, they just skip the entry and move on to the next one. And this is CAN jury that's only looking at case films, not even bother to read an entry form. So always try and focus on how you get that impact within the first 5 seconds. And that first 5 seconds could be simply with when they open the PDF, reading, knowing that it's 7 pages and not 14 pages. The third point, we look at the summary section as, you know, the last thing that we need to do. You know, you fill the entire entry form, and just because, you know, you may be at the 11th hour, 58 minutes, 2 minutes more before submitting, so you just copy paste something that's there in all the 4 sections and paste it to make it 100 words or less. When in reality, the summary is one of the most important areas, right? So many judges decide on whether this entry is award worthy simply by reading the summary, because by reading the summary you understand the challenge, its connection to the insight, and how it flows into the idea and how it's brought to life. If that segment is weak, you can bet that the rest of the other segments that have been elaborated on don't even make sense or connect with each other. So this connecting thread is extremely important. And when you're writing entries, craft that. Einstein has said, if I had 1 hour, I will find 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes solving it. When we write entries, we spend most of our time crafting that segment first. Because once you have that crafted, then adding meat into it, adding flesh into that skeleton is far, far easier. Because you know exactly what you want to cover throughout the rest of the segments that are there. Right? So this is another issue, right? As Gian mentioned, we end up taking hordes and hordes of data and just copy paste it, thinking that, we are showing the jury that this is legitimate, this is, this is real data. That's why there are so many data points in it. That's why in a bar chart, you have 52 weeks to represent every single week of the year. We want to prove to the jury that it's the case. But the truth is, jury is already starting in a predisposition that this is legitimate, right? They don't expect to see entries that have been falsified. They just want entries that are simplified. So you need to prove that the work has actually driven results. So I'll show you a really good example of an APAC winning entry where they just only show before campaign and after campaign and make that clear distinction without trying to show month on month of how the growth has happened and trying to bog the jury down in trying to analyze that and understand that. Another interesting point. Now, here I am not trying to say that this is wrong, but there's a better way of doing it. Right? So when we write an entry, we always try to drive our insight based on research findings and sort of try to validate that, saying this is what research has proven. There's nothing wrong in it. But at the end of the day, remember, your insight is the link between your problem and your solution. Right? So that is one of the important threads that are there that tie the business problem and the creative solution to drive the business problem through. And there, what we sort of always try to focus on is a revelation that you're bringing in to actually solve the business issue. So yes, you might have a research finding, but if that research finding isn't a revelation to help solve your business problem, you can't really call it an insight, right? I mean, in this context of Effie writing, an insight is something that you're actually using to twist your problem into actually an opportunity or giving a new light to help create the idea that drives the business result. So just try and look at it from that standpoint, because whenever you have an insight based on a revelation that really unlocks how you can solve the business problem, that entry really stands out from everybody else's. And most of the people might be bringing out a research finding that's there. So when it stands out, that's where when you really hit the higher metals that are there. So that's something really important, where I think the more you look at award-winning entries from Cannes or Effie, you see that there's a revelation into which, when you look at that insight, you're like, oh, damn, you can see an opportunity to solve this problem, which in the past or while reading the problem, you may not have really unlocked. Second thing, I'm sure most of us are guilty of this. I have been guilty of this, of, thinking the idea is actually the campaign line. And for ease, we end up just using that, thinking that, oh, we have, tied the thread because our creative campaign ends with that tagline. So that is our idea. When in reality, it's actually a derivative of the insight. So you can have an idea with absolutely no mention of the campaign tagline even. But by understanding that connection between the insight and your campaign line, right, finding that point, that sweet spot, that is where actually the idea really rests on. And you are able to make more sense than just it simply being a campaign line that's there. The last point is, this is Effie Awards, yes. This is about creative effectiveness, yes. But it's not simply about results, right? This is about how creativity has driven business results. It's not simply about having the biggest numbers that are there. You might be in a category which has flatlined or declined. And in a declining category, you might have been the only player to, to maintain zero growth, but you maintained where your stance is in the market without declining. That itself could be a result that you're bringing in. So always remember that result can be, interpreted in different ways. You don't need to always have the biggest numbers that are there. And as Jian said, jury easily see through that, right? There are ways from looking just that you can easily make a connection as to whether this number has been driven. Having other jury members who work within the same industry saying that, you can't have such a huge growth within this highly competitive market. It can be seen through. So the point here is not to just bank on, because that could be the easiest thing that you can do. Put in the numbers and expect to win the entry and then look back and say, hey, we had so much of numbers, we didn't drive it. That's really not where the gold, silver entries come from. They come from understanding the results, yes, but also looking at how the contextualization, insight and idea, and bringing it to life come together in order to drive the results, right? So results account for 33%. The rest of the 67% are in the other three areas. So you might end up scoring 33, and looking at the other three areas, people may not believe that you ended up driving that kind of result even. So this is where it's very important for you to look at this holistic common thread that's there within the campaign. So just to give you a few examples on what I meant here, if you look at entry writing, right, executive summary, this is a really, really good example of how you can actually write executive summary, where the insight, the idea, how you brought it to life, and actually the business results are brought in. So just look at this. Even in the summary, to put a one single line saying the research project that became a campaign, it hooks people. This is that 5-second rule that Jian was talking about. The executive summary is the first thing you end up seeing, right? And they go on to talk about the fact that they achieved so much with a zero media budget. And so it is those provocative messages that you see within this that actually makes you want to read more about it. And this campaign is now the most effective campaign ever. And so, those sorts of hooks really want to make you want to read more. They've also gone to an extent of talking about having won an Effie Gold in the past, which is not... other juries also talk about, you don't have to go and talk about you won this award, that award, because that's really not a KPI when you talk about business results, unless you are able to justify that winning an award was a business KPI, right? So this is another example on writing the summary. So this is where we spend the most amount of time. So this was an entry that we submitted last year. We ended up winning a gold for, and here it was in the influencer category. So here the campaign was on a bridal wear that was designed specifically for cancer patients. And the challenge was getting bridal designers to actually design more inclusive bridal wear for cancer patients, right? So as we know, within the bridal industry, there are trends that come and go. And one of the best ways of understanding these trends is in a bridal wedding show or a bridal show in which designers come, and that's their way of, getting new clients also. They showcase their new styles, their new trends. And we hacked one of those designer wedding shows and actually ended up partnering with another influencer or bridal designer, Michael Vijayasuriya, to design this. So if you look at these points, from the challenge to the insight to the idea, every single thing has been looked at to seamlessly flow. So from a challenge point of view, we are saying getting bridal designers to design more inclusive bridal wear for cancer patients is the challenge. The insight is a designer wedding show isn't just a show. It's actually a showcase of trends among designers. So you look at how a wedding show now is a showcase. You see the revelation that's brought in a wedding show, where everybody would look normally as a wedding show as a place where people come and show. We look at it as a showcase of a trend, because now we're trying to create a trend among bridal designers to create more inclusive bridal wear. So at a place where you're showcasing trends, we now go into the idea where we show a new trend by launching an inclusive bridal wear by one of the most renowned bridal designers, Michael Vijayasuriya. So that itself, in a place where you're showing trends, you're bringing out a new trend by one of the most renowned bridal designers on bridal, sort of inclusive bridal wear that's being brought out. And then using that as a benchmark to try and get other bridal designers also to come on board. So in the end, that design wasn't just done, it was made available for other designers also to piggyback on, for them to be able to use. So when you look at this, there's a nice thread that's there from one to the other, and you see that connection that's there. This is what needs to be there when writing an entry, and the most amount of time should be spent here. Once you've cracked this, bringing out all the other sections is easy, because these individual areas are represented by section 1 to section 4. So this again, right? This is one of the heaviest word counts that are there. Short of bringing the idea to life, which is 470 or 400 words. This is the second biggest word count, which is at 350 words or 300, right? Just look at this. I don't think there's even 100 words here. This is a gold APAC winning entry. Market background. What's killing our men? And just a very provocative line there. And they just go to be very, very simple. They don't go to use any hyperbole. They just say it as it is. And they use a couple of charts to actually back that up. And just to show you what that kind of chart looks like is this, right? It's so simple, right? You see the past, you see the present, you see the increase has been highlighted in red. You can see 3x that's there. In another chart they have showed arrows as well to show the steep incline of the bar chart that's there. So these are very, very, very easy areas in which, you know, we should be making it easier for the judge to be able to go through our entry. At the end of the day, as Jian said, there is a limit to the number of metal that can be awarded. You need to prove to the jury that you belong in that tier of being awarded a metal. So always think of it as trying to show off against the entry that has been seen before you and the one that will be seen after you. If you can stand out amongst that, because you're being judged within a category, you will most likely have an entry before you and after you. You need to look at how you kind of stand out there and you grab that attention. The last thing I just wanted to say is that, see, and this again sort of comes back to the first point that I mentioned, right? When it comes to submitting entries for Effies, be selective. You know, quantity isn't it at when it comes to Effies, because we know the toll it takes when it comes to writing an entry and more importantly crafting an entry. Focus on quality, and to be able to distinguish quality between quantity, understand this difference, right? 95% of the work you do deliver results. Every campaign you get, you will find the client saying, you know, it has achieved, or, you know, it has overshot the results, or whatever. You will end up having results. If you don't have results, you will not be the agency on record for too long. So understand that most of the work you will have within your portfolio will deliver results. But there are 5% of the work that you have that will over deliver results in a big way, right? That over delivery of results, again, you need to look back and see whether it was delivered through strategic thinking, powerful insights that, you know, turned the problem into an opportunity, or looked at the problem from a different light and did something different that the category has not done before, that the brand has not done before. That kind of creatively effective work is work that wins, right? That's the kind of work that wins an Effie award. And that's the kind of work that we also want to see and we want to award. At the end of the day, remember, there are limited awards that can be given, and you need to be part of that limited edition of Effie entries that end up winning. So that's it from me. We can go back to that Slido thing.
Yeah, we'll go back to Slido. And guys, in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, I don't
Yes.
know if the chat works.
It works.
It works.
You can turn off the mic even if you turn
on the mic, ask
talk.
questions, please. Guys, let's not make this a one-way conversation.
Yes. We got 10 minutes more, so go ahead and ask. So, okay, let's start from the top. So the main challenge was tying the data we get to align with the theme, because sometimes the data we get doesn't directly align with what we want to say via the entry. So guys, here, nobody is telling you to put every single thing that you have inside this entry. Again, be selective, be strategic in what you want to do. You are building a case, you're building a story. When you are doing that, focus on what really matters. Certain results you have may not be the most appropriate to show, and that's fine, right? This is a case that you're trying to prove from a certain angle that you've really driven that. So focus on what matters and remove the garbage that doesn't matter. Because again, you don't want to be part of the 14-page entry, you want to be part of that 7-page entry. Really, really focus on what matters.
Yeah, I think with this one also, when so clients also have lots of KPIs, guys, when it comes to campaigns, right? But you need to take the KPI that matters. Don't take the multiple KPIs. So I know when I do certain campaigns, some KPIs we actually achieve because of the campaigns, and some we actually fall short of, right? That also kind of happens. So that's what you need to discuss with the client and engage early on in the piece and say, fine, maybe you don't even talk about the KPIs that you don't achieve. You leave out those KPIs altogether. That's why you need to be selective with how you present data and say, fine, this is what it actually, this was the campaign, and that's why you kind of start with the results. I think that's what's very important. At the end of the day, it's an Effie's entry, right? Start off the results and say, what are the results can you give me for this campaign entry? He will say this. Sometimes clients find it very difficult to figure out what does actually move the needle. And that's when you guys need to cooperate and work together and see what actually is the strongest KPI that this campaign has managed to move. This piece of work has managed to move. I think so. That's an art, guys. So that's why start early. Early engagement with them is critical.
Don't go in or go on it on your own. Work with the client together, work very closely with them, and then you'll be able to get that. So how to storytell versus making it boring and pointless? For me, what has really worked is really looking at other winning entries, understanding how they do it, right? So sort of the guidelines that are there when it comes to winning entries is within the first 20 seconds, you get from the problem, you get to your idea. Don't use hyperbole, as Jian said. Don't waste time talking about stuff we already know. Bring out stuff that is new. And again, remember, you may not have that. Then you really need to question and ask yourself, is this entry even worth entering, right? You might really struggle to identify the insight and the idea. Sometimes you just need to face facts and say that, there may not be one in that. And in that instance, it's okay to not submit it even. Really focus on the ones where there's a very powerful insight here that has looked at the problem differently. You come up with a very different idea and bank on those. Not every single entry can be made, you can storytell in it and you can end up winning an entry. It's in the campaign that you make, not the entry that you write, that the award is won. No? That's my 2 cents about it. And the entry you submit is the metal that gets decided. Anything?
No, that's about it. Yeah.
So summarizing complex work concisely and effectively. Again,
same question.
Yeah, how to structure it better. Look at so just go on Google and type APAC Effie or Effie APAC winning cases, and you'll find PDFs. Menses is there, Electrolux is there, Levi Studs is there. I'm just telling you off the top of my head the entries that I have in my own computer, having just typed that on Google. It's free to download. You can download it. The submission process and deadlines.
What's the process? I don't know what the issue is. Submission process.
To include and what not to include to make it a winning one. So submission process and deadlines, you can go through the entry kit. There is a website where you can you have to upload all the documents that are there. If you're doing it for the first time, please call the secretariat, get the information from them. There is a process, not that it is easy. There is a process, so it's best to talk to them and get that if you're submitting for the first time. We're not knowing the process in simple manner. That is connected to writing
style, tonality. So I think that's what we talked about, getting data, how to make it a winning one. So I think, guys, a lot of these things is what we actually covered during the session. Is there anything else? I see one participant typing.
So do we have to fill all the areas, or what areas? Every area is mandatory. I think if you are leaving a space, like for example, if they ask you what is your earned media channels and you don't have any earned media, you can say not applicable there. But you're not allowed to keep it empty.
The other thing, guys, is very important, and this is sometimes see a lot of people missing, is what are the factors was happening at the time which would have contributed to the success of the brand. Is it distribution? Is it pricing? Is it something? So guys, rarely do campaigns operate in a vacuum, right? There's a lot of, otherwise you as the agency person can do the client's job, right? The client is doing lots of stuff. He's engaging with his channels, his distribution strategy. He's doing an incentive campaign for his sales force or his staff. There's lots of stuff that actually happens. So that's another thing which you need to work closely with them and find out what's happened. Trust me, being on a client side, I can tell you, I will never just give a job to the agency and say, this is it, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens behind training, which happens to staff, Then incentive programs gets revised. Then truckloads of stuff happen. So just make sure that area gets filled out. Don't ever keep that blank, because believe me, it is not just that. That means you've not done your homework.
Exactly. I think that is one of the areas where you can really identify whether the entry is being very authentic or credible. Because when you go to that level of degree and talk about distribution issues that are there, or competitor reaction that has happened, or price fluctuation, that really shows that you're being very authentic about it. And there are also things that work for and against.
Correct.
And when you talk about what has worked for and you bring that out again, it only makes you very, very sincere in the entry, because we always have that sort of kind of tinted glass, also especially when it comes to results. Is this actually legit or not, right?
Correct.
So that really adds that credibility part to it. So that's a really good area to fill. What else? What some tips are best better to keep it as short as possible, yet convey the important bits. So to be honest, an entry on average gets edited around 7 or 8 times before we end up submitting it, right? You never submit your first entry, because just like a campaign or an idea, you keep on crafting it and crafting it and crafting it and crafting it, and then after you think you've crafted it, you print it and give it to somebody else to read and see whether they've understood it, and then again you recraft it. So one of the best tips is, what has sort of worked is where we put everything we possibly can, because you want to do that memory dump, but once you put that, you try to go into half or less than half of what is already there in it and try to reduce as much as possible. That really works. Yep, that's it. And have very short, if you're having paragraphs, have them in 2 lines or 3. Don't try to elongate the paragraphs, keep it very, very, very simple.
Yeah, great. So that is a bit of a art, guys. I think that comes down to having time, right? Because like he said, edit a couple of times, give it to another person to read, see whether that person can shorten it down. Maybe have 2 or 3 different people, right, to see who can eliminate some of the stuff. Because sometimes you're repeating stuff in different ways. You have run-on sentences. All these things can make things very, very short, right? If worst comes to the worst, put it into ChatGPT and tell it to make this sentence short. Whatever.
Noise.
Yeah. So just figure it out, guys. You can make it shorter. Just think that you're in a movie, doing a movie, and you need to edit it. Cut. You leave stuff on the cutting room floor. Right. So just keep doing that.
Another thing is when you have that summary, right? When you have the summary, that's your skeleton. That is one really, really good way for you to identify what needs to go in this and what you need to elaborate on, what you don't. If you craft that to perfection, the rest of the entry can be really, really tight. If not local case study. So you can check out Menses. It was done in 2021 or 2019, I think. It's by Movember. What is it called? Sorry, 2020. So if you go to, you can just type Effie Awards APAC and type the Menses 2020. You'll get that PDF. That's about it.
Yeah. Anybody else has any questions? If not,
We've done it in an exact hour.
In our Gayan, I don't know if you're still there. If you're there, maybe you can.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jayan and Shahan. It was a very insightful session. So I think if somebody needs additional help, our team is willing to extend that. If somebody is applying for the first time, I suggest you call us. There are contact numbers in the LinkedIn and the Facebook. Just call us, so we'll give you necessary guidance from the beginning and how to craft a very good entry for this time. This is going to be first session of many, so we'll be having many more sessions, at least 4 or 5 during the period. So I think we can conclude the session for today, if it is all that we have to deliver. Yeah. And again, thank you so much for allocating time, Jayan and Shahan. That's wonderful. And we had a good session. Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye, everyone. Until we meet again.